We are covering a historic moment here in Israel because for the first time in 2 years, over 2 years, 738 days, Hamas holds no living hostages in its captivity for the first time. We are still waiting word on when the bodies of the deceased hostages that were still in Hamas's captivity and hands will be handed over to their families and to their loved ones here in Israel, something that they have stressed is just as important as bringing home the live hostages. But we have confirmed all 20 live hostages have now been handed over to the Israeli Defense Forces, and marking a pivotal moment in a ceasefire that the president confirmed had been brokered last Thursday. And now here we are on Monday morning, and we have seen these 20 live hostages handed over and returned to Israeli soil. We're waiting for all of that to be finalized as we are seeing what their condition is and what this looks like. CNN's Clarissa Ward is in Hostages Square, where, Clarissa, I know every time hostages had been released by Hamas and handed over to the Red Cross and then eventually to the IDF, you had been hearing cheers there in Hostages Square from all the people who've been gathered for hours and waiting for this moment.
That's right, Caitlin. Some of them have been here since 4 and 5 in the morning. And as you mentioned, every single time news comes, the hostages have been handed over to the International Red Cross. The hostages have been handed over now to the IDF. The hostages are now back in Israel. You hear these just sort of jubilant cheers erupting throughout the crowd. This is a moment that everybody here in this country has been waiting for some 737 days. Many of the people who are here today have been coming to this square every single week to demand an end to the keeping of these hostages. This was a moment that they have been dreaming of. They didn't know when it was going to finally happen, and now they are watching it play out in real time. They are witnessing history. And there were sort of some surreal moments as well, Caitlin, like when Hamas gave phones to some of the hostages before they were handed over to the Red Cross to video call their loved ones. And you saw these images and videos of family members talking to their loved ones with Hamas militants in the background of these video calls. And again, everybody here cheering so loudly because these are the first glimpses that they're getting of many of these. Some of the hostages have been featured in these sort of macabre hostage videos put out by Hamas for propaganda purposes. Some of them, of course, when they were released in the past, were incredibly emaciated. And so there were a lot of concerns about what the condition of these hostages would be coming out. Obviously, they'll now be taken to a number of hospitals after that initial assessment to get a better sense of what kind of medical care they might need. Not only, of course, physical care, but mental care. These hostages have been through a profound trauma, and having interviewed some of the hostages who have been released, I think this will actually be the beginning of a difficult time for them as well, because they have poured their entire beings into campaigning around the clock for all the hostages to be released. And now might actually be the first moment after the initial jubilation wears off of sitting still, of standing still, of absorbing everything that has happened over the past 2 years. But for this moment right now, on this historic day, people here in Hostage Square are very much focused on welcoming those hostages home and, crucially, Caitlin, on welcoming U.S. President Donald Trump, who has also been given a hero's welcome. Anytime he's seen up on that split screen behind me, anytime his name is mentioned, the crowd erupts in cheers. There are posters of him everywhere. People have made gifts for him as a show of their gratitude because they believe that it really was the president himself who was able to railroad this through and push it past the finish line so that these people in this square, at least, can close the chapter on a very dark and ugly 2 years. Caitlin?
Before we go back to Caitlin, Clarissa, it's Wolf. It's clear that it's like a celebration where you are over there at Hostages Square. They're playing music, popular songs in Israel. We see a lot of young people even dancing right there. This is a happy celebratory day for so many Israelis right now, as all of these 20 surviving hostages have now been handed over through the International Red Cross to Israel. They're back in Israel, and they're going to process of meeting up with their families and eventually going to get some medical treatment at hospitals, full examinations coming up. But it's a big celebratory day, and you can sense that what's going on where you are, Clarissa, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can hear the music behind me. You can probably see people are dancing, they're waving flags. There are people of all ages, of all political persuasions who are here in this square today. We've seen people bringing their pets, and you have these moments of spontaneous eruption, of jubilation. But I should also say, and you can probably hear it marked with the music too, there are pauses of sadness too and grief, because there are hostages who will not be coming home alive today. There are hostages who will be coming home in coffins. There are hostages whose remains have not yet even been located. But in this moment, you can hear that applause. You can see the images of those 20 hostages, all alive, all now back in Israel, Wolf.
Yeah, it's really amazing what's going on. It's such a difference, and you know, it's interesting because, you know, you reminded me, Caitlin, when we were here a few years ago, we were at Hostage Square, and it was just sad, not only in Hostage Square, but all over. We walked around Tel Aviv, and the stores were basically closed. There weren't a lot of happy people, no smiles as a result of what had just happened.
And you know, I keep thinking, Wolf, as we're watching these amazing moments like we just saw with Lashai, whose husband Omri is coming home. He is one of the first 7 hostages that was released earlier today. The 28 remaining hostages who have not yet been returned, we know are deceased. And I've been speaking with several of those families who know that their loved one is not coming back to them alive. And it just is, it's heartbreaking to think that the remaining 28 hostages that will come out of Gaza, the final ones that are being held by Hamas, will come out in coffins. And you know, you were speaking with Rachel Goldberg-Polin earlier, who I just think has been incredibly eloquent during all of this to deal with so much grief and pain. And just, it's such a bittersweet moment for them to see these families that are so happy, but also have to reckon with their own grief on a day like today.
And the bodies have not yet been returned, but that's really important for so many of these families. They want, according to the Jewish religion, a proper Jewish burial for their loved ones, and they're not going to be able to do that until they get the remains, and that's what they're waiting for.
And typically you would do that so soon after a death, right, Wolf?
Within a day or 2 or 3, you're supposed to bury and have a formal Jewish burial service and say the Kaddish and say the prayers, and that's what they want to do for their loved ones who are coming back in coffins, if you will.
Well, and it reminds me of in the aftermath of October 7th, as we think about what just a devastating day that was and where we are now. We spoke with some of the families. I spoke to one son whose parents and his little brother had been in a kibbutz, and they were killed by Hamas that day in their home, and they could not bury them immediately. And this was a young man, he was probably 22 years old, and he was telling me how devastating that was, because that is so important. Yeah. And he knew it would be so important to his parents. So to have that denied for 2 years to these families is devastating.
It's so heartbreaking to these families, indeed. Jeremy Diamond is joining us. He's been watching all of this very much unfold. What else are you learning, Jeremy?
Well, we're seeing the minute-by-minute developments as they're happening here at the Re'im military base, right near the Gaza border. Behind me here, over my left shoulder, you can see this tent that's been positioned near one of these helicopters that is awaiting. Moments ago, we just saw a van that had blacked-out tinted windows pull up to that tent, and presumably the newly freed Israeli hostages, some of them would have boarded that helicopter. If we see that helicopter take off shortly, I think that will serve as confirmation that those hostages, at least the first few of them, are on their way to Israeli hospitals in the center of Israel. We've seen that happen already at least twice so far. A third bus was making its way around as well, and this is the kind of procedure that we have seen play out in the past. But as you said, Wolf, all 20 newly released Israeli hostages are now in the hands of the Israeli military. military. At least 7 of them are indeed on Israeli soil at the Re'im military base behind me, or in these awaiting helicopters. But it will be a huge sigh of relief, of course, to the entirety of this country to know now that those last 20 living Israeli hostages are now either on Israeli soil or with the Israeli military, effectively back and tasting freedom for the first time now in more than 2 years.